Live. Sorry about that. The previous live that I set up, I didn't realize I had left it unlisted on YouTube. And I was wondering why no one was hopping on except through the links that I had provided on my alternative social media. Anyways, it's one of the probably the few nice nights that we have left up here in Canada. And soon I'll be doing my lives in my office when I choose to do them. While we wait for people to jump on, just some quick notifications in relation to what we've got going on. Just a reminder, I do have a seminar November, I believe, 7th and 8th, first weekend of November in Ocala, Florida. It's going to be a protection and control seminar. If you're interested in that, you can hit us up. I do have audit spots remaining. All working spots are sold out. We may have something popping off in December down in LA that hasn't been declared as of yet. So just wait on that. That'll be popping off, but there might be something happening down in LA at some point in December. Um, Other than that, as per usual, the online courses, everything from pet training, behavior training, which we are going to talk a little bit about today, and sport dog training, to, all lectures on how dogs learn, think, communicate, everything. So shieldcanineonline.com. And as per usual, we've got a book, No Nonsense Dog Training. Feel free to check that out if you want to get detailed information on how to fully train any dog from 0 to 100. Anyways, guys, now that we've got people jumping in here, we can probably get started. I see you guys all jumping on. Hello, hello, hello. Someone, Tommy G says, your new training facility is amazing. Well, it's not so new anymore. It's been up and running for about a year and a half. But thank you, sir. I do like it. Maddie asks, how are the cichlids? The cichlids are doing well. I'm actually more now on the, what's the word? I've got my arowana and my Oscars and a couple of other things in my office fish tank, but that's what we got going on. We got Ian White, hi from the UK, security dog handler on shift again. Very nice, very nice. We have hi from QLD. What's QLD? Stallwind GSD. QLD. Not sure what QLD stands for. We got Michigan, Sydney, Australia. As per usual, a wide variety of people from all over the world. Yeah, Maddie thought arowana are illegal. Yeah, they're illegal in America. I'm in Canada, so Asian arowana are not illegal for us. In the U.S., you will go to jail for those fish, though, yes. Michelle Brinklow says, thanks for the programming. Both of my dogs now have qualified scores in pre-novice obedience. United Kennel Club. Awesome. Very happy to hear. The Jindo Man says, how is Hades? Hades is... Hades, like he doesn't seem to have any problem. It's just like I said, I noticed he was limping on the hard ground there. So I got a vet rolling in on Tuesday and they'll take a look. We got Antarctica in the house. Josh says QLD is Queensland, Australia. So we got some Australian peeps in the house. I don't know. I guess it must be like daytime there or something for you guys to be tuning in. Anyways, like I said, I'll start with some stuff that I want to talk a little bit about, and then we'll maybe get into some of the questions that I see popping off in the chat. So first thing that I wanted to mention a little bit, okay, so like the vast majority of you guys have pet dogs. Like I understand, obviously, some of you guys are involved in dog sports. Some of you guys, have more. You're more on the working dog side of things. But the vast majority of the people on this channel, and obviously in general in relation to dogs, are pet dog people. But social media and dog training, have really gone through a variety of metamorphosis that kind of has created a perception of what dog training is to a lot of people, right? And what you have to understand is we started on YouTube, right? That's really where social media dog training like really kind of took off was on YouTube, okay? And YouTube favors long form content, more in-depth information. You know, the average person will watch a YouTube clip for like generally 5 minutes if they're looking for information at the very minimum. You know, sometimes you'll watch them for half an hour. I know, because I have half-hour videos out there, right? And I've watched YouTube videos for half an hour. So back in the day, you would watch YouTube in order to learn about dog training. But now, obviously, social media has evolved. We're in the age of TikTok. We're in the age of Instagram. You know, even Facebook and YouTube now have a lot of shorts and reels. And the way it works now is if you have an interest. So let's say you're interested in dogs and maybe you've paused on a dog training reel, or you've paused on a, you know, you're scrolling TikTok and you saw someone doing something with a dog and you paused and gave that reel 5 seconds of your time. Now, all of a sudden, TikTok's like, or Instagram or whatever social media platforms like, aha, you like dog training. And now they're going to flash all the dog training content in your face, right? But it's generally not long form content, because things like, and I've spoken about this before, but I want to be a little, again, I want to reiterate this because a lot of people don't understand this. The TikTok and the Instagram and dog training that appears in this form is designed to be eye-catching. It's designed to entertain you. It's designed to hold your attention for a maximum of 10 seconds. Now, I don't know about you, but I really can't learn anything meaningful in 10 seconds. And I'm willing to bet that the average person, especially if they don't know much about dogs, is also in that same category. But dog trainers that are trying to make content for Instagram, for TikTok, you know, for like these very short form social media, you know, grab people's attention, get their like, get their comment or whatever. They're designing it to be entertaining. They're designing it to be flashy. They're designing it to just grab you, you know, for those few seconds and get that impression and drive that algorithm. They're not putting meaningful information in there. They're not putting meaningful training in there. And here's the thing, guys. As you guys know, I am a dog sport trainer, and I'd like to think I'm a fairly accomplished dog sport trainer, right? But I actually make my bread and butter in the pet dog training side of things. Those two things are not the same. Dog sport is cool. Dog sport is flashy. Dog sport is fun, okay? But dog sport is not what is going to train your average pet dog. That type of training is very stylistic, and it's designed for a very specific form of obedience that you're only really ever going to do in the ring, in the arena, in the stadium, wherever it is that you happen to be practicing your individual dog sport. Your average pet dog doesn't need that stuff, nor does that stuff apply to you being able to walk that dog down the street and cut that dog loose on the leash and know that he's going to come back to you, or have him hold a down stay and stuff like that. It's not that those principles don't mesh. It's not that what you do in dog sport has zero application on the pet dog side of things, but it's kind of like if you were trying to learn how to drive your car to the grocery store. Let's say that you didn't really know how to drive. You were trying to learn how to kind of follow the rules of the road and steer and brake and do all of this stuff. And you decided that you were going to watch Formula One to learn how to drive your car to the grocery store, to learn how to, you know, parallel park. You're going to watch Formula One racing in order to learn that. Now, listen, Formula One racing, I'm sure in the context of reels and short clips, looks super fun, super entertaining. Hey, I watched Formula One on Netflix. I know, it looked like a lot of fun, right? Very eye-catching, very entertaining. That is not going to help you drive to the grocery store. That is not going to help you parallel park. That's not going to teach you how to most efficiently drive your car in traffic or merge onto the highway or any of that kind of stuff. Are there same rules and principles at play? Yes, but it's not the same, right? So what you have to understand is Instagram, TikTok, all this kind of flashy shit that you see on there, and I'm guilty of putting flashy shit on there too, believe me, right? Because I know how the algorithm works. That's not actually going to help you. So when I post a long form video, all right, on YouTube, for instance, and you see some of the trainers that work for me, let's say training a couple of puppies, like in my last YouTube video, right? In my last YouTube video, you'll see a couple of my trainers training a couple of German Shepherd puppies. And you see all sorts of people in the comment, oh, that's not how you do it. No, but you're supposed to do this and then that. And then it's like, listen, bro, I know that you think TikTok and Instagram is how you train dogs because that's what people are showing you. When we're functionally training dogs, and I hate to say it, we're really, I don't hate to say it, but I don't want to just sound completely cocky, but I'm absolutely confident in our ability to train pet dogs. That's literally how we've made our bread and butter here for the last decade. And we're very famous for our pet dog training and our functional obedience training, right? It's not the same as the sports stuff. So I know it doesn't look like your favorite flashy trainer on TikTok or, the girl wearing the tight yoga pants on Instagram. I know it doesn't look like that because that's not what we're trying to accomplish, right? I do dog sport. Before anybody jumps down my throat, I do dog sport. Anybody that knows me or knows anything about me knows I do dog sport and I do it on a high level. But that's not your pet dog. That's not what we're trying to do with your pet dog, right? And when you see my trainers doing things a certain way, and it's not the way that you're used to in that short form 10-second flash reel, right? You have to just get used, you just have to deal with it, right? Like you have to be like, oh, okay, maybe this long form content is like, hey, there's something here that maybe I'm not getting in those 10-second reels. Maybe I should pay attention. It's funny because like we dropped that last video, and it was literally just my camera guy, following my team around. And what does the team do here every day? They train our protection dogs, they train our pet dogs. And he literally just followed them around. And they literally were just going about their daily business, the daily business of functionally training the hundreds of dogs that come in and out of here. We don't do 100 at a time, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of dogs in and out of here constantly being trained, right? And they just talked about what they were doing with those dogs. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't flashy. It was functional work that gets the job done every time. And it's been getting the job done for the last 10 years and getting it done really well, which is why we're in the position that we're in, praise be to God, in this industry, right? It's why we pay the bills. We don't pay the bills with the sexy healing that you see on Instagram. We don't pay the bills with the cute little food luring crap that you see, on TikTok. That's fun. And, it makes for an entertaining thing to watch, but that's not actually how you pay the bills, right? You pay the bills with functionally obedience training dogs and puppies so that they're reliable, so that you can take them to the grocery store, so you can take them to the coffee shop, so they don't pull you on the leash, so that you fix their reactivity and all the normal things that dog trainers or that dog owners deal with, right? So don't get it twisted. Instagram and TikTok is not real life, guys. That stuff is cool, and that stuff is often sporty, and that's why all trainers, including pet trainers, show the fancy, sporty style stuff and try to pass it off as regular dog training. It is not regular dog training. That is not what functional obedience looks like. Functional obedience is what 99.9% of the dog training, dog owning community need. All right? The sports stuff, really cool again, not what you need, right? Especially if you have a pet dog. So this is what I'm trying to say. Don't fall in love with the flash. Don't get too focused on the flash, right? If you actually want to learn something, go watch that long form content. That long form content is actually going to be what teaches you how to functionally train a dog. And here's the other thing. I know a lot of people, when they talk on social media about dog training, I can just tell by how they talk. Literally all they know about dog training is they might have a dog or two, but everything that they know, they're just parroting something they heard someone else say. The one thing you understand real quick about dog training, once you've been doing it for any length of time, is there are general trends in dog training when it comes. I don't even like to say rules, because rule implies that something that must not be broken, something that can never be changed, something that is rigid and set in stone. In dog training, there are certain trends, there are generalities that you follow, general principles and ideology that you follow if you want to get to a functional result. But they're not rules. Like, for instance, people were concerned because my trainers marked like 3 times when they were feeding a puppy, right? But then one time they gave the puppy food without marking. And it's like, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, if your timing is right and you're giving the dog food, or even depending on what you're doing, you might not even need to mark at that time. I know your favorite, Instagram trainer or whoever you watch on YouTube told you that you must always mark before you give the dog a piece of food. No, you actually don't have to mark. But there's a reason why we do mark, and there's a time to mark and there's a time not to mark. And hey, when you're a really good dog trainer, you can get away with not ever marking, maybe. You know what I mean? But that's not something that you're going to get into with the average person that doesn't know what they're doing, because there's no need to, right? But when you're watching people that do this for a living, and they've been doing it for the last, I don't know, 10 years, right? They've been doing it really well. Maybe just shut up and watch what they're doing and take what you can take from it. Just my opinion. Anyways, that was one thing I wanted to say, because I want to show, I've been showing a lot of like sporty stuff on my channel, right? A lot of sporty stuff, because that's kind of been the journey I've been on. Been climbing the dog sport mountain for the last few months. But I still want to show people the bread and butter. I still want to show people that pet dog side of things, the functional obedience side of things. Even if you don't have a pet, you got a police dog, you got a protection dog. You don't need the sporty shit. That's not going to help you, right? Or it's not going to help you most of the time. You need that functional obedience, because that's the obedience that actually works on the street. It's the obedience that works in real life, right? It's a different thing. All right, let me go through some of these comments here. Tommy G says, how do you handle correct redirect a dog that offers all kind of behaviors without an actual command when the e-collar is on? Well, why would I correct a dog for offering behaviors? The dog's obviously trying to figure out what you want. So, maybe be a little bit clear, give the dog a job. And then also ask yourself the question, why does your dog act a certain way with the e-collar on when he doesn't with the e-collar off? That's another question to ask yourself. I don't believe in making dogs collar wise. I know a lot of people do it accidentally, but don't do it. Your dog shouldn't know what the e-collar is or isn't. My dogs don't behave any different with it on or with it off. How can I increase the energy in my low key Rotties during training? Well, you can find a way to arouse them. If they get excited when they play, which almost every dog does, including lazy Rotties, you got to figure out how to play with them in such a way that you drive their arousal up, and then you can start classically conditioning that arousal and channeling it into the behaviors that you want them to be more active in. Ian says, why are the fish banned in the USA? You're referring to Asian arowana? I don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, you can buy South American arowana there. You can buy Australian arowana in the U.S., but they're just dead set against the Asian arowana. I guess they're worried about invasive species, but I don't know why they picked the Asian one to be the bad one, because the Asian ones are, in my opinion, the coolest ones. But it is what it is. You'll go to jail if they catch you with one. As per usual, those with mental health issues will be removed, and we wish them all the best somewhere else. Craig Walter says, how many of your own dogs do you have in your kennel? And what's the name of the next dog you're going to compete with? Well, all my current competition dogs are still with me. So I don't know about next dog. Gage and Chico are still with me. Chico's in the kennel. Gage is in the house. Andre Martinson says, live on the porch, Denmark, America. Thank you, sir. Yes, live on the porch indeed. Tammy Perry says, I like your pants. Well, those are from my friend Denise at Eric Outdoor USA. So check her out if you guys want the same pants. Arabi says, you feed your personal dogs raw or kibble? I feed my dogs kibble. Shayna McDonald Dog trainer says, speaking of pet dogs, I recently started the resource guarding course. I'm very impressed with the results after just a couple days. I posted it before and after in the group. Great course. Awesome, Shayna. I'll be sure to check that out. I'm glad to hear it's working for you. I feed my puppies the same as the adults, Royal Canin. Don't ask me about the age to introduce the e-collar because there is no magical age. I've said this 1,000 times. I'll say it again. There is no magical age to introduce an e-collar. There is simply the right time in training when the e-collar is going to give you, it's going to expedite your training, and it's going to magnify what you're doing and make it better, right? So if you're not, there's no magical age. You reach that point in your training when you reach that point, right? When you say, okay, the e-collar at this point is now going to magnify what I'm doing and expedite the whole process and make things easier and clearer for me and for the dog. It's not like, oh, we've hit this magical age marker. Let's throw the e-collar on the dog and magical things are going to happen. No, no, no. That's not how it works. 305 Dog Training says, nervous dog doesn't like or allow other dogs to smell her behind. How to help her understand and enjoy this instead? You don't. You stop letting strange dogs go up to her and smell her behind. She doesn't like it. The more you force it upon her, the more she's not going to like it. Josh Imana says, what I like about your courses is that it is no nonsense and you don't overcomplicate things. I've heard other trainers talk about pack drive. What is it? And what's your take on it? Well, thank you, Josh. And my courses, just as I speak to you now, and just as my book is written, and every other thing that I put out is very no nonsense because I'm all about cutting to the chase. I don't like beating around the bush. I don't like wasting people's time. I like getting right down to the nitty gritty and expediting the entire process and getting to the point as fast as possible where the dog is, in a state of obedience, in a state of control, because the sooner the dog gets there, the sooner we can cut that dog loose and let him be free. For example, today I went for a horseback ride with my dog, and he was completely off leash and with me. And we passed numerous dogs and numerous people on the trail that, had reactive dogs or, were riding on bikes or had kids and all this type of stuff. And, dog fully under control, right? And that's what I think that everybody wants, is that dog that they can just go anywhere and do anything with. And I'm all about getting there as soon as possible. But to answer your question, pack drive, what is it? It's just another kind of like fancy term for a dog that has a level of desire to naturally please the handler, right? Like they want to work with the handler. They want to be close to the handler. They want to cooperate with the handler. There are some dogs that have a very high drive to do this, aka the border collie, for instance, right? They just generally speaking extremely driven to please the handler and to work with the handler. Your average Belgian Malinois tends to be like this as well. They're very sensitive to the handler, right? And then you have dogs that are very not like this. Like, for instance, your average livestock guardian doesn't have a lot of this because their job, their historical job anyways, requires them to work and live independently. They're out in the mountains with the flock, They can't be worried about what the human's doing all the time. They're supposed to just kind of hang out and be with the flock and look around and keep an eye out for suspicious activity, right? So that type of dog isn't going to have that same pack drive as, for instance, a herding dog would have, because the herding dog is originally designed to work in close companionship and partnership with the shepherd, right? Ride with Ivan says, good German Shepherd genetic lines for bite sports. Any of the current working lines right now, I mean, you can look at them and pick whatever works for you. There's not like a line. It's like, yeah, that line. It's like, there's a lot of good dogs, and, dogs, if you want a nice working dog, West German working lines are pretty good right now. Some of the Czech stuff these days. Again, nothing is pure anymore. It's not like go to those Czech lines. It's like the Czechs don't use Czech dogs exclusively anymore. There's just different kennels that are producing well, and different studs that are producing well. So there's really no one that like I'll be like, yeah, that one specifically. but there's a lot of them out there. David Hoff, I think I got my video for my pro trainer certification. Hopefully, it gets a passing score. I tried at a different location and security stopped me and told me to put my dog back on a leash mid video. It can happen. It could happen. Um, Ariana Tanti says, I had a really nice foundation on cooperative play with tug ball before teething. After teething, something changed. The pup doesn't want to re engage with me and tries to piss off and possess the ball. What changed is the dog's maturity. What you're discovering is what a lot of people discover, that just like a child, a human child, becomes more independent as they age and they're less interested in mommy and always being close to mommy. It's the same for your dog. Before, when they're puppies, they're all about mommy and daddy. And then as they get a little bit older, they become little doggy teenagers. They develop a little bit more independence and they're more exploratory, and it's more about them and less about you, right? And that's where you have to create a little bit more of a obligation, like, hey, it's nice to be with me, but also when I ask you to be with me, you must be with me. It's not a choice, right? Just like with the human teenagers, you can't give them too many options. Otherwise, they're going to make some bad decisions. Solsticeful says, my trainer were in a competition sport. I followed their training. My Malinois has higher training than an average pet dog. Trained in German, English, off leash, 100% recall and signals. Great. You have a Belgian Malinois. Geek Gain says, do you know? And you know what's funny? So, let's say someone came to me and they had like a nice Belgian Malinois, right? And they said, this is a pet dog, but I just want to do the sporty stuff that you do. I want focus healing. I want my recalls like yours. I want a formal front. I want nice finishes. I want fast positions. I want all that stuff your sport dog does. Can you train this? So, yeah, sure, we can. It's going to take way longer than it needs to take, because functional obedience done correctly takes no time at all, right? Whereas when I'm training a dog for dog sport, it'll take like a year to get all the fundamentals in there, right? Because we're really worrying about all the little pieces, right? All the little tiny details that are going to mean points or no points on the field. I don't care how, if it's a functional obedience, I don't care how the dog lies down as long as he lies down. If I'm training competition obedience, I care his elbows are both in contact with the ground. He's in a perfect pyramid down. I want him to jump into the down. I don't want him to, take maybe an extra step or two as he goes into the down. I want him to go direct, fast into the down and wait focused on me with the ears up, not the ears back. All of these little things that matter in dog sport that don't matter in functional obedience, right, is going to make how I train a dog to lie down in dog sport literally like 100 times longer than how I will train it in functional obedience, right? So, if you brought me your Malinois, you said, listen, I'm not ever going to compete with this dog. I just want nice pet training. I said, no problem, we'll do it. It's going to take way longer. I'm going to charge you way more, obviously, because it's going to take much more of my time and your time, right? But we'll do it. And I make it so your Malinois will focus heel with you down the street and, does all the obedience. And it'll kind of be like this hybrid between it'll never be as good as a dog that only does this type of obedience on the sport field, because you can never have that level of drive and anticipation all the time, right? But it'll kind of be like that hybrid mix between sport obedience and functional obedience. So it's like it's not completely functional and it's not completely sporty, and it's like kind of like this hybrid between both. It takes way longer to do for no particular reason. And again, I'm all about expediting processes, right? Things sometimes need to take time and sometimes they don't. So that's why I train a functional obedience very differently than I train my obedience for the competition field. But surely, yes, when I take, let's say I have a sport dog, and I've done this before, where I have a sport dog and I'm training him for dog sport, and like we reached maybe a year, and I say, you know what, I don't want to compete with this dog. There's something here maybe that's missing that it's not going to be a good dog for me to compete with, or my preference is not to compete with this dog. And I say, all right, he's functional now, right? All I do is I just reduce how many times I reward him, right? For doing things like heeling, sitting, downing, coming when he's called, because it brings the drive down a little bit, right? And it brings how enthusiastic he is about doing it down a little bit. So I bring the energy level down a little bit by just reducing the reward and putting a lot more obligation on the dog. Does he still do everything? Hell yeah. It's a very fast transition over. Is it as good as it would be if we were going to compete at the Worlds? No, hell no, it's not. But, is it more flashy than it would be if I just functionally trained him from the beginning? Of course it is. Did it take way longer? Hell yeah, it did, right? So, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Geek Gain says, "Do you know a good brand of tug toys? My Mally goes through them so fast." I generally find when people are going through, I don't have any brand that I suggest because I'll just get a toy from anywhere and anywhere and just use it. It doesn't matter because I don't leave the toys with the dogs, right? It's when you leave the toy with the dog and you let your dog chew on it that they burn through it quickly, right? Toys are just me and you working together with this, but when we're done, I take it away. When people leave it and the dog's lying on the ground and chewing it, that's when you go through the toys, right? So yeah, I don't really have one that I would be like, yeah, get these toys. Massa RHAP says, "Been watching your videos. My dog improved a lot. Going to my first BH trial." Well, congratulations, and I wish you much success. Michael P says, "Good evening. I enjoy your videos very much. Thanks for the great content." Well, thank you. Ariana says, "Any tips?" Also, yes, I am having the dog on the leash and not allowing the puppy to just lay down and do its own thing. I think you're talking about the dog that didn't want to play with you. Yeah. When he wins the toy, use the leash to make him come back to you, play intensely, and reinforce what he wants to do with that toy. Every dog has their own preference. I have a free YouTube video on this. Every dog has their own preference. Some dogs enjoy the act of fighting with you for possession of the toy. Some dogs enjoy the game of fetch. Whatever it is that your dog likes to do, make sure that he gets reinforced with that thing when he brings you the toy back. And then he's going to want to do it. And use the leash to make it not optional, right? To the point where I'll be like, listen, the second I let you have the toy because you won the toy, you better boogie and bring it back to me. And if you don't, I'm going to put pressure on you until you do. And if you so happen to drop the toy, no problem. I'm going to grab that toy, tease you with it, and put it away and say, better luck next time, right? It's not an option. You bring me that toy back right away. Z Sprick says, "Do you ever see dogs who show very good drives and bite work, as well as possession on a suit, but very high threshold, mediocre interest in fetch or tug?" Yes, I do. And the reason why is because the decoy and the emotions that the decoy is eliciting while wearing the bite equipment that the dog is biting is substantially superior, right, to what you are doing with the tug and with the ball, right? I see a lot of handlers, they just don't know how to open the emotion. And listen, I'm a decoy too, right? Like I really know how to open the emotions of a dog, to the extent that when a dog plays with me with a ball, I can make him feel like he's playing with he's biting a decoy, right? Like I can make it semi-serious like that, right? You have to make it, hey, this isn't, a lot of dogs don't have the drive to just play with a ball or play with a tug, but they do have the drive to fight with it. They do have that play possession, that drive to dominate and to have that conflict and to fight. That's what gets them going, not just the act of having the fabric or the piece of rubber in their mouth, right? The dogs with extreme prey, like dogs like my Chico, for instance, yeah, you put something in his mouth and he'll just have it in his mouth and he'll be like, oh God, thank you. And it's like almost like a sexual experience for him. He just loves it so much. He gets such a dopamine rush out of just having something in his mouth and chewing it and possessing it. But there are many dogs that doesn't do anything for them. But now when you make it a fight for the object, when you make them really have to fight with you and conflict with you for it, now all of a sudden you'll see the drive for that object go through the roof, right? So yes, I have seen that quite a bit. France says, what tools, aversives, do sport dog trainers in countries such as Germany and Europe use? Well, they use all the same ones we use, but they gotta hide. That's the difference, right? I know they'll tell you all sorts of cool stories, but believe me, as somebody who knows, they all use the same shit we use. They use it differently because just they have to hide it, right? So, for instance, the e-collar for them, when they're using it, a lot of the times they don't use it as a stimulator like the way that I use it. They don't use it in many ways like that. They use it more as like a hammer to like really correct like create an aversive around a specific behavior that they need to maybe do so instantly, remotely, at distance, whatever, because they just can't use it as frequently as we do, right? And they have to hide the use of it, whereas we can openly use it. So we can use the e-collar in maybe all its capacity, whereas they're more forced to use it in a more limited way, kind of as like just the big hammer that they pull out of the toolbox sometimes, whereas we use it in a much more broad spectrum capacity, which is why you're going to see more and more North American, until they change the rules, of course, more and more North American IGP practitioners prevailing and being successful on the world level, because the dogs that we can train here, and the way that we train here is we just have more spectrum available to us now because of the rules and the laws that impede the handlers in Europe. So you're going to see that happen over the next 10 years, or they're just going to change the rules so that it favors kind of more the other type of dog that you can train maybe in a bit of a different way. And at that point, I don't know if I would be interested in continuing in the dog sport, but yeah. Stalwin GSD says, Happy Canadian Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. Michelle Brinklow says, do you ever see dogs improving their pack drive as they age more? I've taken my two out of the forest and spent more time working obedience, and recently they are both working better for me. I don't know that that's a natural increase in pack drive. I think that's just you're working with them more, and it's going to naturally create, obviously, a better relationship with the dog. When you become the arbiter of all things good and bad in their life, which is basically what functional obedience training is, when you become, the arbiter of freedom and space and resources and all of these things, they will naturally gravitate towards you and have a much more close relationship with you, because that's what nature dictates that they do, versus if you didn't really do too much with them. Coco Man says, hey, we made it through the hurricane. Tore us up bad, but lost power for a little while. Well, I'm glad you guys made it. I saw that the severity of the storm changed as it hit land. Luckily, I think it dropped to Category 3. It was a Category 5, and then it got Category 3. So very happy to hear that my Florida peeps are hopefully, for the most part, alive and well and undamaged. I want to talk about a funny thing. There was a conversation recently that popped up in the Facebook group, the IPO training Facebook group, for those of you that are in there. And somebody was saying, why do we allow bitches? Basically, they're saying, like, why do we allow bitches in season to compete? Now, for those of you that don't know what a bitch in season is, it's a female dog that is at the time when she's going into heat, which means that she will be bleeding, she'll be dripping from her nether regions. And it creates a very interesting smell that all the intact males that are also competing will become very interested in. And typically, when you have a bitch in season, if you're a female, if you're a handler of a female, the typical way that things will go is if your bitch is in season, you will go last. Everybody else goes first. They do all the obedience, all the protection first, and the bitch in heat goes last, right? And the idea is that way there's not this, tantalizing smell all over the stadium that is going to distract the intact male dogs, many of which have been used in breeding in the past, so on and so forth. Now, personally, as someone who's had 3 males that I've used in IGP, right? I don't believe that this should be a factor. I believe that my dog should love obedience and protection more than they love the smell of a bitch in season. It is certainly a distracting thing, but I believe that you must train for this. But all that being said, you know, I had some fun with it, as you should when something like that pops off. But I could not believe the amount of female handlers that were popping out of the woodwork and acting like this guy had like suggested, like they were saying it was misogynist. I'm like, you ladies have truly gone mad. The ladies that were making this assertion, you realize that you're projecting yourself into the position of a female dog, right? There's nothing misogynist about suggesting that a female that is in season maybe doesn't belong in a competition. The reason why she might not belong in a competition is A, when a bitch is in season, her hormones are going crazy, right? So she's not going to generally be at her best mental place to perform at the highest level, especially at a high level competition. She's not going to be in the ideal place to perform and be successful at that level. And then number two, yeah, you're creating a problem for a lot of the people that do have intact males that are the actual primary competitors in the sport. Like the vast majority of people do compete with males, and there's a lot of reasons why people compete with males, including the fact that males don't undergo heat cycles, which can greatly impede your ability to compete. So if a heat cycle comes up, let's say right before the world championship, that's going to be a bit of a problem for you. Now, for me, I'd like to think that any female that I took to compete with, it wouldn't be a problem because there'd just be so much dog there that we'd go past it. But I do understand the impact that her odor would have on the other dogs. Now, you know, a lot of the female handlers were losing their minds and acting like, this individual had suggested that they not be allowed to compete when they were menstruating or something like this, which was hilarious to me. And naturally, of course, I had to poke the bear and have a little bit of fun because people have no sense of humor these days. About that stuff. They really should. What happened to the days when we could all just laugh, and tell a good-natured joke or three, right? At the expense of somebody. It's unbelievable. But anyways, I thought that was a little bit funny and also kind of a sign of the sick times that we're in, where people, would project themselves into the role of a female dog and act as if they were being relegated back to the kitchen. So, naturally, I said I don't believe that any female, or what did I say? I said I don't believe that any female in season should be allowed to compete, nor should any handler that's in season be allowed to compete. And I'll stand by that statement. We can't have any fornicating or sniffing in the long down. It's not allowed. All right, let's see what else we got going on here. Havana Murdoch says, "Hey, Has can get Dogo to grip nice and solid when using a wedge pillow, but she will be super gentle when it's a sleeve." Well, yes, the sleeve is on your body, and your dog probably doesn't want to bite you. Um, and that's obviously, something where, again, why I don't suggest, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't work your own dog. That's all there is to it. Especially with certain dogs, like your typical Dogo, they're not going to have a lot of prey drive, like you say, like your average Belgian Malinois. So that means the emotion that they're going to have to bite in, if they're going to bite in a meaningful way, is not going to be an emotion that the dog's going to be comfortable exhibiting towards the handler. Hokey Pokey, a handicapped bulldog. That's an awesome name. Hey, Haz, it's Hokey Pokey's birthday. Been 5 years since we trained with you. Thank you for everything you taught us. Well, I'm glad to hear it. How do I not remember a dog named Hokey Pokey? But I'm glad that he's doing well. Um, Josh Imana says, "Has I trained my German Shepherd, Kelpie, and Husky and raised them with the Shield Canine courses? I want to upload a mock pro cert video in the group. By all means, do it. No, nobody's stopping you." Nepopo is the best thing that happened in dog training. Eh, it's a good system. I wouldn't say that it's the best thing that happened in dog training, but it's definitely not a bad thing. Let's see what else we got. Flag America says, how to punish a dog for constantly barking outside in his kennel. Well, bark collars work very well. I suggest you look into that. I like the Sport Dog Deluxe bark collar. It's pretty good. AJEP says, my 6-month-old German Shepherd is very mouthy and loves to play with his teeth. He loves to roughhouse with me, but has never crossed the line to being too aggressive. Should I stop this, or is it okay for at his age? I mean, I personally don't mind if my dogs roughhouse with me. I'm able to identify good roughhousing and bad roughhousing, and I'm able to identify when it might be a problem for an individual dog. Your average dog can roughhouse with you, and it definitely isn't going to turn into anything. The question is, do you like it? And if you don't like getting bitten and bruised up and you don't want it to continue, then you shouldn't allow it. But if you have no problem roughhousing with your puppy and having a good time with him, then by all means, let it happen. Enjoy yourself. Giovanni Mancini says, hey, I have a 4-year-old pit bull. I did a lot of work to get him obedient, and he was a very driving dog, great with kids, people, etc. Now, but there's a large influx of illegals in my area that have robbed houses, and I'm wanting to get him back to his original ways, but he's scared to act out because he used to get punished for it. What can I do to turn him back on? I mean, I don't know how you said he was very drivey and now he's not because he's scared to act out. I mean, to me, it sounds like, you want your dog to kind of be antisocial and territorial. And if he's not naturally inclined to be like that, then he's not naturally inclined to be like that. And if he is, he is. If you want to engage in some form of protection training, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you're going to have to go to a skilled decoy. And, if you've got enough dog there to get it done, they should be able to get it done. And that's all there is to it. There's nothing you can do to make him more X or Y, right? Randy Una says, good evening. What do you think about not punishing a dog for growling and how to punish it? Which tool or changes behavior if dog does it towards other dogs going around? I mean, there's a lot of unanswered information there. Is it a growl is a threat? It's a warning. It's a threat, right? There are times when a growl is allowing a dog to communicate to another dog with a growl can be productive and necessary. And there are times when it's not productive and necessary because the emotion that it's linked to is not a productive and necessary. In fact, it's a very unproductive emotion for the specific situation. So there's a lot of variables there. In terms of what to correct it with, what tool, et cetera, et cetera. It would totally depend on your dog. It would depend on your training history. It would depend on the situation. There are, again, way too many variables there to say anything. Ride with Ivan says, are you a fan of free shaping? Only for competition obedience. Many people I come across are strictly free shaping. I normally lure to teach, then I free shape. I never free shape. It's a waste of time. Why do it, right? I can show the dog what to do. It's like saying, listen, Ivan, I'd like to teach you to do something. I'm just going to sit here while you just make some random shit up. And when you come somewhat close to what I want you to do, I'm going to click and throw you a cookie. Or I could just say, hey, Ivan, let me show you what to do, okay? And I'll reward you for doing it. Which are you going to pick? Obviously, you're going to be like, hey, bro, chop, chop, time is money. Let's get to the cookies here, right? Show me how to get the cookies. I want the cookies, right? Like a lot of people come up with this random weird shit that doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, oh, let's free shape. I want the dog to make decisions. It's like, really? You do? Because I've seen dogs eat kitty litter and lick their own ass, It doesn't mean that, like, the dog is not something that you should respect, but at the same time, it's like, we're teaching them artificial behaviors. 9 times out of 10, what you want a dog to do and to learn how to do is it's something that's artificial. It's not a natural thing for the dog to do in most cases. So why wouldn't you artificially create the behavior that is artificial in the first place? The act of lying down and staying in it down. That's not a natural behavior. Yeah, a dog might happen to sleep in a spot, but for the dog to respond to a command, lie there and wait there until you say, hey, it's okay to get up, right? That's not a natural behavior. For a dog to walk next to you, matching your pace and direction in perfect unison, that's not a natural behavior. Yeah, the act of walking is natural, but not the way that you need the dog to walk in relation to healing. It's not a natural behavior. Of course, we create all of these things artificially, and any other behavior you want to come up with, right? A lot of people, will be like, oh, when they free shape, it's so amazing, and they have such a wonderful connection to the behavior. I've never seen it. I've never seen it. I can give a dog a wonderful connection to a behavior simply by leveraging the dog's internal drive and desire, right? And linking that internal drive and desire to the specific behavior pattern that I want to link it to, right? The same with emotion. A lot of people talk about emotion. Oh, like I want my dog to have a good emotion. It's like you don't know what the fuck emotion is when it comes to dogs. You don't know how to leverage emotion, right? When you want a dog to be in a high state of emotional desire to perform a behavior, right? You don't get there by just being like, yay, like that's not how you do it, right? Like if you watch dogs when they're really, especially working dogs, because we're usually talking about working dogs when we speak of this stuff, right? So, like for instance, healing, okay? You see how my dog heals with me, right? He's not like, yay. He's not like that. He's like, there's a difference, right? There's that happy, 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 and happy, happy isn't reliable. Happy, happy doesn't hold together in the stadium. That's why you see the happy, happy dogs in the stadium. Happy, 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 happy. And they're looking around and they're fucking off. And oh no, that guy moved funny. Oh crap, I'm scared now. Because happy, happy isn't a strong emotion, right? What I need is intense arousal, right? When I want emotion and behavior, we want intense, driven arousal, right? That's my dog in the healing. That dog doesn't look away because for him, there is nothing more valuable than that act of healing. He's like in this state of like extreme dopamine, like he's like a crack addict looking for his next hit on the pipe, right? But at the same time, there's a little bit of resistance there. So like he's a little bit angry because he wants it, but he can't quite get it. That frustration, that containment, that power, that's where you get that bam, 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 right? True power, full power training, right? That doesn't come from, yay. That doesn't come from there, right? And one dog has a lot more fun. One dog is a lot more addicted, right? The other dog is very optional, right? The other dog, oh, this needs to be this way and that needs to be that way. Otherwise, I won't do it, right? So I can heal my dog through the fire, like literally. Light a fire in the grass. I'll heal right through it. My dog will heal through the fire because the drive and intensity is there for him to do it. Versus the happy, happy dog. No, no, no. There's no happy when there's fire, right? And you guys, if you don't understand the analogy that I'm giving here, I don't know what to say, but there is an analogy, right? So emotion is something that's often misunderstood and mischaracterized in dog training. Like, for instance, I want my dog to love articles. How did I make my dog love articles on the track? A lot of people are like, well, if I want him to love articles on the track, when he gets to the articles, I'll give him cookies and he's going to love the articles. He might like the articles, but he ain't going to love the articles, right? Now, loving the articles is not just the cookies on the article. It's making him believe, right, that, hey, I might lose that article. Not only might I lose that article, I might be taken from the article, right? So when my dog goes to an article and I grab his collar and I pull him back, you see him go, no, my article, right? He'll even show his teeth. I go to pull him off the article. I'll be like, ah, right? Because he has such a drive, such a desire to be on the article. Because I didn't just make it nice to be there. I made conflict there. I said, not only the nice things happen here, but I might try to take you away from here. But I'll always let you fight your way back there, right? Things given freely, it's good, but it's not great. Things you have to fight for, whether you're a human being or whether you're a dog, that's something now that is extremely valuable. That's something that we have the highest level of drive, desire, and arousal for. Don't believe me? Go back to that question somebody asked, right? Ask yourself, is your dog as obsessed with you in obedience as they are obsessed with the decoy, right? If you're engaged in bite sports. Does your dog love obedience with you as much as the decoy? And if the answer is no, which invariably 99% of the time is, Ask yourself why that might be. What's the decoy giving your dog that you aren't? Larry Anderson says, can you talk about the differences between the MVBK and FCI Malinois? Well, the MVBK Malinois is the Malinois that is being produced for Belgian Ring. As per usual, you have a variety of dogs within those lines. You have some softer dogs and you have some really hard, strong dogs. The FCI registered Malinois, again, you have a variety of dogs. You have some really nice dogs, and then you have a lot of really soft kind of, you know, listen, with any breed, whether it's a German Shepherd or a Malinois or any other breed you can come up with, you know, when we talk about high performers, we're talking about the top 5%, maybe the top 2% in some cases, right? Everything else is just kind of right? And that's just the nature of the beast, right? So a lot of people are like MVBK, FCI, this and that. MVBK has some pretty legendary dogs, but I think the MVBK Malinois these days is changing because of, again, the rules in Belgium, the rules in the Netherlands, right? That's why you're going to see the CanPV Malinois is already changing as well. It's not the same dog that it was 10 years ago because those dogs, nobody wants them anymore because training them the way they need to be trained in order to be in control would be illegal in today's Western Europe, right? So those dogs are changing. So people need to get away from these paradigms. Here's the other thing. A lot of FCI Malinois have hung papers, right? The dog, yeah, they brought some NVBK blood in. They brought some CanPV blood in to thicken up the lines, right? To put some more hardness and size and independence into the lines. And they hung papers on the dogs, right? Because, of course, the NVBK and the CanPV dogs historically were not considered Kennel Club registered dogs because they were actually mixes. They were Dutch, Mal, German Shepherd mixes. So, yeah, but I've had some of both, and they can all be cool dogs. Velcro 1997 says, I found out the other day how crazy people go when you mention ear cropping. I was looking for a vet local to Brantford that crops, and oh boy, everyone came out of the woodwork with their opinion. I love ear cropping. I would never own a Doberman without cropped ears. I probably wouldn't own a Presa without cropped ears. I think it's if it doesn't, it's the only thing that's going to save that breed, right? Like once you remove ear cropping, who's going to really want a Doberman with floppy ears and a whip-like tail? You might as well just get yourself a black and tan coonhound at that point. The whole look of the dog, which is what sells the dog, certainly not their performance, um, you know, is why the dogs have the popularity that they have. So when you remove that, you're going to basically make that breed a thing of the past. And, as per everything in 2024, we're ruled by emotions. We're not ruled by reality. Does ear cropping really, like, as someone who's cropped ears, not personally, but taking dogs to the vet for cropped ears, back when I used to breed Presas, does it adversely affect the dog long term? Hell no. It makes the dog look better long term, and dogs that look good, generally speaking, have a lot less trouble finding a home if the situation ever occurs that they need one, which is always a good thing. And we're talking about doing it to guardian breeds, so the dogs will look more intimidating, which again, part of their job. They're 99% of them are deterrents. Like, people are buying them for some level of protection and safety. When someone sees a cropped Doberman, behind the fence of an estate, they're a lot less likely to break in than if they saw a floppy-eared one. I'm going to tell you that much, right? And floppy-eared one, they'll be like, is that a little hound dog? That's cute. Not going to worry about that. I'm going to jump that fence. I'm going in there and I'm taking whatever I can take, right? Versus, oh, crap, that dog looks like the dogs I saw in Resident Evil. I'm not going in there, right? Regardless of the actual capability of the dog, it's 99% of it's the look of the dog. And then in terms of like the overall like impact on the dog, listen, the same people that are against cropping are all for cutting the nuts off dogs and cutting the ovaries out of dogs because they can't be allowed to have hormones and reproduce, right? Or I can't control my dog. Maybe if I cut his testicles off, he'll be a good boy. Or if I cut her ovaries out, they're all for that. But all of a sudden, the second you talk about doing anything like that's going to increase the aesthetic, appeal of the dog, all of a sudden that's wrong, right? So I don't really have a lot of patience for it. There's a lot of intellectual dishonesty surrounding the whole topic. I think if people, if and there's also some health benefits to cropping, especially depending on the job that the dog's going to do as well. But, anyways, that's my opinion. My cigar keeps going out. Your 12-week-old puppy cannot be trained to attack on command. Please don't. You need to find yourself a professional to work with, my friend. That's all I can say to you. There's nothing you can do that. Do I train opposition reflex for pet dogs? That's from Flag America. Yes, in some circumstances, I do use it. Kyle Green says, is there a specific reason you don't like using a Malinois for IGP? Okay. I'm not opposed to using a Malinois for IGP. Actually, my first real competition dog was a Belgian Malinois named Bastien Baccaro. If you go way back on my YouTube channel, you will see him. And he was one hell of a dog. I wasn't the trainer in those days that I am now, so I wasn't able to take him to the level of success that he would be capable of. I will say this. Bastion could have been on the world level if I was the trainer that I am now. And I wish that I was at the time, but hey, everything in life is a journey, right? He was a top tier dog, really really nice Malinois in the bite work, good obedience. The tracking was the weakness, and at the time I just didn't have the skill and the talent as a handler to bring him where he needed to go. But yeah, he was a hell of a dog, man. But yeah, I'm not opposed to it. The majority of Malinois I don't like in IGP, just because I don't think that they show the drive transitions correctly, which is why you see a lot of silent guarding Malinois, or they go in the blind and they bark like, a dog that's just been neutered yesterday. I don't like that. I like dogs that show a lot of dominance, and what you see with a lot of the Belgian Malinois is they have really good obedience because they've got the fast twitch, and they generally have a high desire to please and work with the handler, whereas the average German Shepherd carries a little bit more independence. But a lot of the Malinois are missing that power, right? That power that you look for. But when you see a Malinois that does have the power, oh, it's a beautiful thing. It's just, unfortunately, I don't think you see it as much as you see it in the German Shepherd. I think a lot of handlers favor the Malinois because they can be perceived as a little bit, maybe, let's say, easier to work with and easier to make, like, that reliable, obedience and stuff, reliable obedience and reliable control in the protection, because they tend to be a little bit more biddable dogs, and they're very pattern oriented, whereas the German Shepherds, they can be a little bit more complicated to unlock. But in my opinion, on average, I prefer the German Shepherd to the Malinois, but there are some exceptions. There are some Malinois out there that are just complete beasts. But yeah, that's my overall opinion on the Malinois in terms of IGP. Hokey Pokey, a handicapped bulldog, says, "My dad bit you." High caliber alphas. Oh, ammo. Your dad is ammo. Uh, you didn't put an e-collar on as we had issues making her move forward. Oh, I think I remember you. Yes, yes. The dog was like, she was like on three legs or something. I'm glad to hear she's doing well. And yes, Ammo did bite me. He is, to date, thank God. I say thank God because I haven't been bitten as badly since then. Um, but yes, he did bite me. Good old Ammo. Dwight says, "Do you think too much obedience can make it hard for a dog to advance in bite work? If it's the wrong kind of obedience, yes. If it's productive obedience for the type of bite work you want to do, no." Kendrick Cam says, I have a 10-month-old Moodle, Moodle, that plays too rough with my new 3-month-old German Shepherd, jumping on the puppy's back, biting the side of her neck. Any advice? Yeah, don't let her injure your puppy. Keep them separate, and put some control on that dog, and stop allowing it to go over there and ragdoll your puppy. That's gonna not end well. A Sapien Emerge says, I got a new black German Shepherd. It is 5 months now, and every time I try to take my older dog out, he goes berserk and wants to get him, no matter what. Not aggressive, but barking and extremely excited. Well, yes, he doesn't want to be left behind, and, he wants to be part of whatever it is that you guys are doing. But yes, that's one thing that you must teach a young dog, is that they can't always come with you, and they can't also kick up a huge fuss, when you're doing something with your other dog. And that's where those rules come in. Get my book, No Nonsense Dog Training. Check out my online course, the Elite Off Leash Obedience course, and put that basic control on your dog and give yourself the ability to tell your dog, no, that's not okay. You can't do that, right? Otherwise, it's going to be quite hellish for you every time you try to take your other dog out without him. Saxerate says, how would you deal with a dog that hears commands but doesn't actually listen and offers everything he can think of instead of what you ask? Well, if he's offering you something, that means that he's trying to be right. Why would he offer you something if he has zero interest in listening? If he didn't want to listen to you, he'd just completely ignore you and not do what you're asking him to do. But if he's offering you something, that indicates that there's probably some level of confusion as to what you actually want him to do. So the thing I would do is I'd clear that up with him first and make sure he understands what each verbal signal means. Um, and then from there, why does a dog listen versus why does a dog not listen? Well, you have motivation, you have obligation. Motivation is, I'm going to give you something nice when you listen, or I may give you something nice when you listen, and the dog has the hope of that. And then obligation is, there's also a consequence for not listening, right? So these things need to be made clear, but first you have to be sure that the dog understands what it is that you want, right? Sorry, guys. So at this point, I am going to fast forward through the content, or sorry, the comments, and pick just a couple of them, just because we have so many on here, and I'm going to be wrapping this up soon. But I'm going to hit a few more of them before we do that. Um, you know, let me see here. George G says, Hey, my 28-month-old working line German Shepherd growled at me on the couch just as I stopped giving him a chin scratch. 4 months earlier, he was sat on the couch and he walked over me and started growling. Well, yes, sir. Your dog is exhibiting some social aggression towards you, right? And it's starting as a threat, and it's going to escalate from there if you don't do something about it. Now, what you need to do about it is you need to stop putting your dog in situations that trigger that behavior. And what you'll often see with males is, as they grow and mature, they'll start to exhibit some of these traits. Certain types of dogs, typically, your working dogs that have maybe a little bit more inside of them. Not all of them, but some of them will start to show this type of stuff. Like, they'll come over you, you start petting them, and all of a sudden they'll start growling, you know, and it's a conflict. So what happens is, when a dog comes over to you and demands something, right? Demands affection, for instance, like they come over to you and you start petting them. The dog came over to you, demanded affection, you gave them affection, right? Now that is creating a conflict. On one hand, you're daddy. The dog is used to listening to you. On the other hand, you're offering submissive behaviors, right? By giving the dog that affection just because he came and demanded it, right? And usually there's a lot of other small things that have occurred that maybe you didn't notice. And it's crossing the dog's wires. It's a conflict. It's like, well, on one hand, you're this, and on the other hand, you're acting like that. And that subservient behavior of giving the affection on demand to the dog is creating that conflict. And that's eliciting that aggression where he's like, you know, you're seeing that growling begin to occur. So the solution for dogs that start to do things like this is A, to never give affection on their terms. When the dog comes over and demands affection, get away from me. Go. I don't give you affection when you come and ask. Now, if I want to give him affection, I'll be like, hey, Fido, come here. Pet him. All right, go. Right? You do it like that. Now it's a different thing. I told you to come, I did something, and then I sent you off. The other thing, too, is stop allowing him to free roam the house. He's free roaming. He's walking up to you on the couch and going, right? My couch. Get the fuck off of it. That's what he's telling you, right? So you need to put an end to that. No more Dougie on the couch. Now, listen, a lot of trainers like, no dogs on furniture ever. Now, me personally, no dogs on furniture ever for me because I don't like their hair on my furniture. But it's a rule that doesn't, like, you could get away with a lot of dogs on the furniture. Like, a lot of dogs aren't going to give you any problem being on the furniture, but for some dogs it does create a resource guarding behavior which will elicit that social aggression, right? So for those types of dogs, no, right? Especially when you see that predisposition, that behavioral predisposition in the dog to show that behavior, no more furniture for you. You now must relegate the space of that dog. Go over there, be on your place. You don't get to wander anymore and claim areas of the house or claim furniture, so on and so forth, right? So things like things like that got to put an end to it. You got to put an end to it, right? And you put an end to it with better management and not putting the dog in the situation that's going to create those emotions in him, that's going to get those wires crossed, so to speak, and you're going to start to see that type of stuff. I'll see it a lot too, like, handlers that like always going to their dog and giving affection, and that elicits aggression as well. I see this quite commonly, right? The dog's like sleeping on the bed, and the handler goes over and it's like, hey, coochie coo, and they're trying to pet the dog, and the dog's like, ah, right? Going over to a dog, looming over them and touching them. A lot of dogs will accept it and actually enjoy it, but you have to realize that it is fundamentally a very rude behavior, especially if one dog does it to another. And there's a lot of dogs that don't like that at all. They might accept it from the handler. They pin their ears back and they kind of give you a bit of the side eye, but they allow you to pet them, and they're submissive to you, and they will put up with it. But some males, it's almost always males, will be like, no, 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 you don't do that to me. I'm a big man now. You treat me like the boss that I think that I am, right? So don't do that, right? With those types of dogs. It's only going to get worse. Maria B says, what did you think about the dog that won the WSV? I thought it was a very well trained dog. His father, Vegas, has produced a lot of really nice dogs. He looked like a really nice dog, and congratulations to the trainer. She won the Super Bowl, man. She won the big one. The WSV is the big one. It's the original. So, that's what I think. I mean, I don't really know the dog personally. Bree says, I want my dog to heal like your dogs. Well, check out my focus healing course, or my power healing course is what it's actually called. It's shieldcanineonline.com. Someone says, talk about Kevin in retrospect. Kevin was the Caucasian Ovcharka I had. I mean, I did all the talking about him I needed to do when he was here, and I did it on YouTube. He's living with somebody on a sheep farm now. The dude loves him. He was your typical Caucasian Ovcharka. He was a really nice dog. I liked him a lot. If I ever wanted a dog like that, I probably would, get another Ovcharka. But I don't really have a use for a dog like that right now. So Massa RHAP says, what was your reaction when Zach George used an aversive on his German Shepherd? I didn't really have one. You know, a lot of people are like, aha, Zach George. I don't talk about that clown. Other than that one video I did, like daily, like I don't speak about, like I don't care about the guy, right? Like he's a clown on social media. He doesn't do anything. Like he has no bona fides as an actual dog trainer. Like a lot of people get obsessed with him because he has like a following on YouTube. And listen, I used him. Like I did the video on him because I just wanted to take some of his followers. I used him, you know, for like used his name to like, you know, obviously take some clout or whatever it is, right? But like as a dog trainer, like he's not a dog trainer. Like, who cares? You know, the things that he says, he doesn't even believe those things that he says, right? He's not somebody that I would consider to be, you know, a reasonably intelligent individual or a reasonably logical individual or somebody that, you know, has any level of proficiency in terms of dog training. So am I surprised that, you know, he got caught on video or somehow stupidly posted a video of himself, you know, correcting a dog? No, I'm not surprised. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You know, I don't care about the dude, and I don't care to talk about him again for the rest of this live. Mustard Seed says goes, are you pro Israel or pro Palestine? Wow. This is a dog trading live. You know what I'm pro? I'm pro no more kids dying. How's that sound? I don't want any more kids to die. I think there's been like, I don't know, what is it? Like 20,000 kids dead now, right? That's the estimated number of kids killed to date. Let's stop killing the kids, right? That's what I'm pro. And by the way, in case you guys don't know, I'm half Middle Eastern, so I get Middle Eastern Facebook. And Middle Eastern Facebook's a little different than North American Facebook, right? North American Facebook is, you know, you get your cute memes, you get stuff on the presidential election. I get that too, by the way. You know, you get your dog stuff, so on and so forth. But Middle Eastern Facebook, I guess they have different rules or something, because I keep seeing videos of dead kids, and it is extremely disturbing. But I force myself sometimes to watch it because I live a very comfortable and happy life, and my children have the privilege of running water and electricity and a roof over the head and the reasonable expectation that bombs will not be dropped on them. And that's not something that, you know, it's something we take for granted, but it's not something we should take for granted. And when you see dead children being pulled out of the rubble on a regular basis, it's definitely a wake up call. And you know, all those people that are rah rah rah, kill kill kill, war war war. You know, it puts a little bit of a different spin on things. I think everybody should be forced to watch those videos. And then if you're still for war, then I guess that's how you feel. But I think a lot of people, you know, just don't see that side of it. All they hear is, you know, they just see the cool stuff and you know, the planes flying and the guys doing CQB and, you know, talking about killing terrorists, right? They don't see the dead kids getting pulled out of the rubble. Leashless Canine says, do you prefer leather or biothane leashes? I like leather. All right. Michael Zanur says, my first husky I trained with your online training with his recalls. Good. And he's trained on the e-collar. He heals well. I'm training the female recall right now and going well. She's food motivated. Well, that's always nice when they're food motivated. Jasper says, what's the most expensive canine you ever trained and what were the bells and whistles? The bells and whistles. You know, when you value a dog, I assume you're talking about like dogs that I've sold, right? When you value a dog, the training, of course, is a huge component of it, right? How many, a lot of people think of training in terms of how many things does the dog know how to do. That's actually the wrong way to think about training. It's the best way to think of training is, look, when you're evaluating, let's say, a football player, okay? Let's say you're evaluating a football player. Let's say you're evaluating tight ends, all right? All tight ends in the NFL roughly know how to do the same things. Like they know how to do all the same things, right? For the most part. There might be a few like differences here and there between like what they know how to do, but it's how well can they do those things under high levels of stress, right? Under high levels of pressure. How well can they do those things? That's the best way to think about dog training. It's not how many things the dog knows how to do. It's how well can the dog do those things and what is the quality of the individual dog? Just like with, a sports player, they might all know how to do the same things, but there are some of them that can do the exact same thing at a much higher level than, uh, the others, right? And that's basically how you look at dogs, right? I mean, fundamentally, they all need to be able to do the same things. They all need to have that same, level of obedience training. They all need to be able to, engage a threat. But how well can they engage the threat? How well can they do all the other things that they need to be able to do? Yes, there are some dogs, of course, that, let's say maybe they've got a lot more scenarios in training. They've got a lot more maybe advanced obedience behaviors and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, it's how well can they do those things. That's what determines the quality and the price of a dog. Z Sprick says, "What point in training age do you teach formal outs on the decoy for working dogs?" There's no magical age. Again, it's a time in training. When I see that the dog has, uh, you know, the natural the commitment that I want to see in the bite, then I will teach the out. Until the dog shows me the commitment that I want to see in the bite on the decoy, I won't worry about an out. But typically, I will teach them out a lot sooner on toys. If you want all the information on that, check out my out course at shieldcanineonline.com. Someone asked me any tips on separation anxiety. There's a free YouTube video that I did on separation anxiety. Let's see what else we got here. Battle Buddy Canine. That's Jeremy. Hello, my friend. I sent you my video for my cert today. Excellent. I'll check that out when I get a chance, Jeremy. Onyx says, in White Lake, New York, for a bit, maybe a year or so, 6 hours from Gage. Well, that's cool. I don't know that I'll be giving you Gage though. Gage is great with my kids. He's a nice house dog. I don't know, man. I think I might let him retire here. BHD says, where do I find help with resource guarding? Um, you can check out my online course on resource guarding, or if you can find a local trainer that is proficient in dealing with it, go to them. Let's see what else we got here. Again, guys, sorry if I'm skipping you. How do I feel for the hostages? Again, you're going back to the Israel thing. I feel bad for them, and I hope that they are able to survive the ordeal that they're going through and are repatriated to their families. I still don't think you should be killing kids, though. Do you ever come to or around Vancouver to train and hold seminars? I have been to Vancouver. I have no plans to go for a seminar there, but if I do, I'll certainly mention it on here. All right, guys. Looks like we've reached the end, the natural end of our life. And I'm going to wish you all a good weekend. I hope all of you guys that are celebrating Canadian Thanksgiving enjoy yourselves. And I would like to see you all again on the next one. You guys have a good one.